Few movie themes get me going like Mission Impossible. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today I've got a special one. I got my review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, aka Mission Impossible 8. This is maybe the last movie in the franchise, only time will tell regarding that, but I was able to see the film early. This is going to be my non-spoiler review of The Final Reckoning, so be sure to hit that like button. Comment down below your predictions or expectations for this movie if you have not yet seen it, and if you have seen it, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. I mean, quite a bit. So I'm going to give you some background on my relationship with Mission Impossible before I dive into my thoughts. Always like to do that, lay the groundwork for you guys if you're new viewers or returning and you don't know. I love this franchise. To me, this is the premier action movie franchise of our time. Started in 1996 with the first Mission Impossible, and nearly 30 years later, we are with the 8th film, and these movies just get bigger in scale, the stunts get wilder, and I've enjoyed the hell out of this series. Every single entry, even 2, which I think is the worst, has some moments where I'm like, that's sick. Like when Ethan kicks the sand and shoots Sean Ambrose. Anyway, topic for another time. But when it comes to The Final Reckoning, it was my most anticipated movie of the year. And so going in, I was excited, but I kind of, because of some recent disappointments I've had due to my own personal expectations, I said, you know what? Screw any expectation. Let's just go watch this movie. And so I went in with really not even thinking about the film. Like, obviously, I was buzzing with excitement in the theater. You know, those butterflies you get in your stomach before a big movie, kind of like when you're going up the chain lift on a roller coaster. That's how I felt when I was seated. And that feeling never went away because I'm happy to say the movie delivered for me. It did. And if you saw my out-of-theater reaction, you know I dug this movie, guys. It delivered, and I have lots of good things to say. I said in my out-of-theater, you want to hear my in-depth thoughts? You're going to get them. Let's go ahead and get into them. So I'm going to start with the pros here, and this video is going to be pretty much mostly pros, which is a good thing. My biggest pro with this movie is how gripping the film is. It's genuinely an edge-of-your-seat thrill ride, and that's a trait that I think you can associate with most of these movies. That's the intention. It's an impossible mission they're going on. Well, here, no BS, the stakes are the highest they've ever been in the franchise. And I know you're probably sitting there, if you haven't seen the movie, going, how's that possible? I mean, nukes were at play in Fallout. Buckle up, because this movie makes it feel like the world is going to end, period. And we felt this way in other Mission Impossible films, yes, you know, where you're like, oh my gosh, they've got to save this group of people, or they got to save, you know, this town, or they got to stop this from happening, or else part of the world's gonna, you know, get destroyed. Well, here, the entire planet is at stake, and I can't make this up. It is intense from the jump. They let you know within the first 20 or so minutes, hey, this is the real deal. Like, strap in, get ready for one hell of a ride. Tom Cruise, you're a madman. You son of a you did it. I said that in my out of theater, and I mean it. He delivered here, in my opinion, with some of the franchise's most daring stunts. I'll say it. I don't know how they pulled some of this off. I was just so tense in the theater watching this film because of how well shot some of these sequences were. Like, Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise are on another level when it comes to their chemistry, crafting these insane stunt sequences. Like in Fallout, we get the helicopter chase in the final act where Tom is like hanging out of a helicopter chasing after John Lark, right? Well, here, there's a similar scene that's about twice the length, and the stakes are 1,000 times higher. And it's all over the marketing. There's a plain stunt in this film that just white knuckle stuff. I don't say that lightly. Like, I was sweating watching this film, and I'd say the second and the third act of this movie really ramp up the stunts, the intensity. I was all in, and my theater was warm, okay? And I'm naturally warm, kind of like Bob from Thunderbolts. If you understand that reference, you're a real one. But I was warm. I was damp as the credits rolled because it was hot in the theater, but also the movie had me so locked in that my internal body temperature was rising, and I was sweating because of how, you know, just locked in I was to this movie. There's no other way to say it. I was horrified that the fate of the universe was on the line, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen for a while there. Not until the credits rolled did I feel the sense of relief. I was like, okay, that was just a movie. It was just a movie. I can come back to reality now. I was that wired in from beginning to end. The movie's 2 hours and 49 minutes, and to me, it flew by. Now, I think that your personal take on the pacing of the film is really going to rely upon how big of a Mission Impossible fan you are. Because if you aren't in touch with this franchise and haven't seen all the movies and didn't like rewatch them beforehand, you might not pick up on a lot, because this is really the culmination of this entire franchise. There are various callbacks to previous entries in the movies, whether that be a character return or, you know, a MacGuffin from a past film being called back into the picture. Like, there's a lot of little details from past films that are mentioned or hinted at. And so if you aren't up to date on the Mission Impossible films, I highly suggest you do that before seeing this film, just to get the most out of it and really feel, you know, the most immersed in the experience, because it genuinely is not only the culmination of the 8 movies, but of 30 years almost of, you know, Ethan Hunt as a character in this franchise. It's a celebration in many ways, and there are even like montages of past moments early on in the film, like kind of reminding you, hey, this is a refresher of some of the biggest moments from Mission Impossible. And so in many ways, the movie does feel final, you know, hence the title, right? The Final Reckoning. To me, this could totally serve as the last Mission Impossible movie, and I think they would have stuck the landing with it, because I was highly satisfied with this conclusion. You go to a Mission Impossible film at this point, and they've got this reputation for stunts, right? And I mentioned the, you know, insanity that was the whole plane sequence. Well, there's a submarine sequence here as well, and fans of the franchise know underwater scenes in Mission Impossible hit different. I'm referencing Rogue Nation here, where Tom Cruise is holding his breath for these long takes. What they do in this film takes sort of the core principle of that scene and the idea, right? Expands upon it and puts him in an even more life or death situation that feels absolutely impossible. They went for it with the impossible sequences here. It's astounding, really, how he pulled it off. And I watched a behind-the-scenes featurette on the whole submarine sequence, and it just blows me away. The dedication that Tom Cruise has to not only his craft, but the character Ethan Hunt, and the true peril that not only the character's in, but Tom Cruise is in filming these things. The man is insane, and I can't thank him enough for you know, committing to this franchise for so long, because he delivers thrills unlike any other on the big screen. I mean, we're not getting action movies like this that feel real, okay? There are action franchises out there where there's like CGI spectacles, yes, but the amount of practical effects and actual stunt work being done, it's a sight to behold on the big screen. Like, this is a movie you have to experience in IMAX. I saw it in Dolby at my early screening. I booked my IMAX tickets earliest showing possible, Thursday the 22nd, to get this thing, the full experience, because I'm more of an IMAX guy when it comes to the big movies like this, and a lot of this film was shot in IMAX, so I can't wait to experience these again. It'll almost be like a first-time viewing, seeing even more in frame. And when it comes to Mission Impossible, stunts are a key. Action, you're there for all that, right? But you gotta care about the characters, and here, in my opinion, they nailed it with a lot of the emotional beats. I will say there were moments where I felt tears starting to swell. There was a sense of finality, like I mentioned, but this is the last time it feels like we're going to see a lot of these characters together. And so that, as a fan of the franchise for years, it pulls on the heartstrings. And there are moments between characters, you know, whether that be a character delivering a monologue or just like a sweet little moment of acknowledgement between characters that'll like get you. And they just really crush it, because they know which characters we care about at this point in the franchise. And they really went in on relationships between them, and I'm being vague intentionally, but there was one or two moments in particular I was like, man, they're about to get me here. The score, that was a major key component of the film that worked for me. I mean, the Mission Impossible scores as of late have been pretty fire, and that's par for the course here. They knocked it out of the park, and in the final 15 or so minutes especially, there's one scene where the score amps up, and it got me. It got me good. So it's safe to say, in my mind, again, this is all my opinion, go see the movie and form your own opinion, that The Final Reckoning really blends the extravagant, you know, stunts and action sequences with the softer character moments and a very intricate plot that requires your utmost attention. These are not movies where you can, you know, watch and scroll on your phone or kind of be half tuned in, tuned out. You gotta like give it your all and really put your focus cap on for this. And I can't emphasize this enough. The last act, the last 50 minutes we'll call it, one of the most intense cinematic experiences I've had. I was physically gripping my seat. I genuinely was tense. Kind of like how if you're driving in a car and you like have to swerve because a deer runs out in front of you, or there's like debris in the road, or a car almost hits you, you tense up physically, right? I was that tense for about 45 minutes of this movie because I was so uncertain of how things were going to go. And there were so many layers to the final act of this film of, you know, different characters having assignments, them having to pull it off without a hitch, that I just could not believe what I was witnessing. I found myself holding my breath with anxiety in the second and third act of this film because they had me that hooked in. Now, I will say, some of the longtime supporting cast, group of characters in this franchise, do not have as much screen time here, but I felt as though this was way more Ethan Hunt's story than anything, and also, the newcomers really shined. Tramell Tillman, who plays Mr. Milchick in Severance, that he got a clap from the audience when he showed up just because of Severance. He was a scene stealer here in the moments he had to shine. Hannah Waddingham, who you might know from Ted Lasso, plays a role here, but Hayley Atwell as Grace really stepped it up in the absence of Rebecca Ferguson. I'm still butthurt that they killed Ilsa Faust. I'm not a fan of that choice, but I had to live with it and move on. And I think in her absence that Hayley Atwell actually does a pretty good job as Grace stepping in. And of course, you got Benji here. I think he's the most lovable of the, you know, supporting characters, especially the long-term ones in Mission Impossible. And so he and Ethan's relationship plays a very pivotal role in the movie. Klementieff as well, Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. Badass here, she's back. You got Shea Whigham. Of course, Kittredge, the character, is back. So lots of familiar faces from Dead Reckoning and other films in the franchise make appearances. And because of that, like I said, it feels like a culmination, damn near a celebration of Mission Impossible. But I can't emphasize enough how truly thrilling this movie is. I think it's well worth the price of admission to go see an IMAX, and you won't be disappointed, in my opinion. Now, it's not a 100% perfect movie for me. I think that it will even enhance for me on rewatch, but I do have a couple cons I gotta mention, okay? And this is not me damning the movie. This is not me saying, oh, it sucks. I love this movie. I'll say it right now, it's my favorite movie of the year. It's a 4.5 out of 5 for me, and it could go up on rewatch, but I gotta talk about a couple cons I had just on first viewing. I noticed this with Dead Reckoning. I watched it in theaters, had some issues, watched it again. Those issues kind of dissipated, and I watched it again before this, and I feel like the more you watch a Mission Impossible film, the better it gets. I think that's going to be the case with this one, but I got to talk about a couple cons I have. Nothing major. My biggest issue would probably be the first act at times can feel a little bit disorienting. What I mean by that is we have to remember this movie's a part 2, okay? And so a lot of the first act is sort of recapping major plot points of Dead Reckoning, so it can feel a bit repetitive, but also there are some info dumps that can just be a lot to process. I found that with Dead Reckoning as well. When I rewatched Dead Reckoning, the first act, it's like info dump, info dump, info dump, and you have to be like, whoa, we just got hit with like a brick wall of information. Like I need a minute to process all this. It can feel that way with the first 30 or so minutes of this film as well. Now, I find that with most Mission Impossible movies, at least this one and Dead Reckoning, you have to get to the opening title card and then things really take off. I found that to be the case here as well. There's like a feeling of uncertainty, right? Like, what are they doing here? What's the move? What's Tom Cruise? What's Ethan Hunt plotting? You got to kind of be patient. And so I found that once we got to the title card, we were kind of off to the races. But for the first 30 or so minutes, it was a bit wonky. At least it felt that way at first. Also, you have to embrace the entity. I know for me and other fans of the franchise, on first viewing of Dead Reckoning, I was a little hesitant about the franchise shifting gears from, you know, villains and concepts that are more based in reality and heading in a direction of AI and this computer having the power. It felt a little sci-fi in a way, right? Well, here you got to embrace the entity, okay? You got to. And I've learned to do that because what's scary is when Dead Reckoning came out, I was like, this is far-fetched as hell. There's no way an AI entity could take over the world. And it's been 2 years, and I feel like we've already made huge steps towards that being a real possibility, which is truly horrifying. But I've embraced the entity, and this is a movie. It's fictional. These movies have always been far-fetched. This one maybe goes the farthest of the bunch in terms of believability, and you kind of have to just say, hey, this is a movie, so not everything is based in reality. What's frustrating in a way, I guess, some of the earlier entries are like, yeah, this is 100% real. This could happen. But now it's like, you got to understand this is a movie. And if you can do that and really buy into the entity as a concept, you'll be better for it, in my opinion. So for a split second in the first act, I was like, are we about to go too camp with it? There's a moment with Ethan and the entity, and I was like, what are we doing here exactly? For a split second, I was like, no. But trust me, we moved on from that pretty quickly, and we kicked things in the next gear. So I just bought into the entity, and you're better for it if you just do that, I'd say. And kind of harkening back to a point I made earlier, if you're going in expecting like the cast camaraderie of the team, that's absent for a good chunk of this movie. You still get it. But this isn't like a Fallout or a Rogue Nation where you're seeing the whole team at work the whole movie. Ethan is kind of doing his own thing for a bit of this film, and then there's some division amongst the team, but it all comes together in the end. However, those are a few little gripes I have with an overall exhilarating watch. Truly, my heart rate increased watching this movie. I was physically sweating, just like I'm sweating right now filming it. And I cannot wait to see it again. Like, they delivered, in my opinion. I will say, with most Mission Impossible movies, I think they just get better the more you rewatch them, and so I'm so thrilled to go see this again in IMAX. It'll almost be like a first-time viewing, seeing the movie on an even larger screen in a more premium format. But I feel like I'll be able to appreciate this movie even more. I had chills with the final 15 minutes or so, the score, I mean, all of it. Like, I loved this movie. I can't emphasize that enough. I love this movie. I cannot wait to see it again. It's my favorite movie of the year. I just want to see it again so bad. I can't stop thinking about it. Like, there were so many moments that I was just like, this is why we go to the movies. Tom Cruise, thank you for giving this to us. This is a truly epic conclusion to the Mission Impossible series. If you want to do more, please bless us with that. But at the same time, I'm okay if this is like the let's ride off into the sunset on a high note film. I'm okay with that. If you want to know my ranking, I'll have a ranking of the films dropping next week to line up with the movie's actual release. But I will say it's damn difficult to top a movie like Mission Impossible Fallout. I always have viewed Fallout as like the creme de la creme of Mission Impossible, and I may still feel that way, but that's a phenomenal feat. Fallout might be the peak, but there are still films right there with it. And I'd say as of right now, after one viewing, Final Reckoning's in that conversation for one of the best in the franchise. So that does it for my review of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Let me know your thoughts down below on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't, are you excited? I want to hear your expectations. Of course, hit that like button, subscribe into that notification bell. Be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. This review will self-destruct in 5 seconds.